Hello, welcome back to the environment project at the Maya Toolbelt. We are starting the UV process, and I'm just going to record another part of this, kind of still going through this whole process of UVing our kind of main hallway piece. And you can see the progress we've done already from the previous part. So, I think what I'm going to do with this piece, since this is kind of a copy of this piece over here, I think I'm going to delete half of these faces and UV this side, and then the other side I'll just mirror it over, and that should be fine. I'll do the same, actually for that piece, since this is a small piece, I'll leave it like that. So let's go ahead and go back to my panels, saved layouts, and I like to use the perspective/UV editor. So we have our side-by-side UVs, and I will go to our UV menu and we'll do an automatic mapping at first. And I think just like with the arch we did before, we're going to map this out straight so that any wood texture we apply to this will flow with the flow of the geometry and not go against that at all. So with that in mind, let me actually Alt-H to isolate this piece by itself so I can get a good look at it. And I want to grab some of these top faces up here to start with. So this looks like these down here are what I want. So I'm going to select this UV shell, select shell, kind of move it over here. And it has some of these beveled pieces attached to it already. I can leave them there, or I can detach them and kind of apply them again if I want to. Either way, it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to select this edge. I'll use my move and sew command to attach the section of faces that corresponds with this piece. Looks like that is the end of this one, and that's the end of that one, so there's no more after that. So these edges over here, I'm going to select all of these polygons, cut UV edges, and then I'm going to start sewing them onto this straight piece. So I'm going to select these edges along the side here and move and sew. Then I'll do the same again. I'm pressing the G key to reapply the last action, which was move and sew. And I don't want to sew the two sides together or it's going to merge in the middle. So I'm going to deselect that side. So I'm only going to merge these edges down the row here, merge those together. Then I have a couple left over from, you can see this section here is a little bit different. So I'm just going to, first I want to straighten these UVs out. So I'm going to grab these UVs, press this button here, which is the align to the bottom, or align downward. So align them all straight like this. Then I'll grab this edge and move and sew. Let's see where these, if you select them like that, you can kind of see where they correspond to over here. So I'm going to move and sew here. All right, and then I'll straighten these out a little bit. I'm going to align to the left, like this. Just to kind of straighten these. Align downward. So yeah, the align tools are useful for straightening things out. I'm just going to kind of grab rows and straighten them. Looks like I have some here that did not quite get sewn. Move and sew. Okay, so we need to move and sew right through this entire row here. I'm just going to kind of go select all of this and deselect all this. Move and sew. So I should get all of those edges that I missed, get them all merged together. Okay, so it looks like I got these all straightened for the most part. I grab this row here and align those. Okay. Then we can apply our shader that we have, our texture grid material. There we go. Control-Shift-H will unhide everything that we hid last. And I'm going to select our UVs now. I'm going to rotate them 90 degrees. And let's make sure our scale is about right. So because I'm getting kind of cut off here, I'm going to isolate these two pieces, Alt-H, just so I can make sure my texture scale is correct. I want that orange section to kind of be the same as the piece below it, same scale. That looks close enough, I think. Stretch it up a little bit. Just trying to get it kind of proportional. I can kind of see that through the middle here, we have some faces that are a bit stretched. Like this G here is stretched out to the right compared to this one at the top. And that's from these faces being a little bit closer together. You can see as I move these to the right to try and make the gap between edge loops similar in scale, that stretching goes away. Okay, I think that's close enough for now. Control-Shift-H to unhide everything. And now that piece, we'll call it done. Looks like I missed this little sliver of a cube shape here. I'm going to, because this one has a scale applied to it, I'm going to go to Modify, Freeze Transformations before I apply an automatic UV unwrap. Going to select all these edges like this, and then looking at the piece, I go into wireframe mode, I'll deselect the edge I want to be the seam, which would be this one of these back ones, and then I'll move and so. And then because I had all those other edges selected, they should map together pretty nicely because this is a relatively simple shape. And then I'll just need to apply the side faces, attach those. Move and sew that one, and move and sew that one, so they're kind of attached to the sides here. Again, I'll apply our texture grid. If you've been following along from the last video, you can kind of see the pattern of actions. I mean, it kind of stays the same throughout for the most part. My texture is upside down, so I'm going to rotate it 180 degrees with these rotating arrow buttons. And then again, I'm using that orange column as kind of my main guide for texture scale. So about like that. Okay, got this piece here we could do the kind of same concept with. First I'm going to go to Modify, Freeze Transformations, then UV Automatic Unwrap to just give us our starting point. Since this is this simpler rectangular shape, I can select all those edges through the middle like this, and then choose an edge to be my seam. Now because this one has beveled edges, I need to make sure I don't select one of the inner beveled edges that are still attached to its representative face. So I might just choose, when I kind of mouse over them, I can see them highlight over here in the perspective view. You can mouse over one, like this one for example. I'll control click that one to deselect it, and then I'll move and sew the rest. So then they all get attached together nicely. Then I'll attach the side pieces. Move and sew that one. Move and sew that one. I'll assign our texture. This is a pretty small piece, so the scales can be pretty small. I'll scale this down. So in order to kind of gauge the scale of something that's so small, I'm kind of looking at the pixelated thickness of these white lines and try to match that as close as I can. I think that's pretty close. And it's just a small detail. I don't think it's too big a deal if it's a little bit off. I just don't want it to be way off. All right. And while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and mirror this piece. So let's isolate it by hitting Alt-H. And also, now that I've zoomed in, I can see here we're getting some texture stretching because I did align those UVs. So you can see how that purple is stretching up to kind of go with the flow of this edge. So I do need to change that. So let me find that edge loop. Should be these three here. So I'm going to right click and select these UVs. Grab all of these. And we'll deselect those are fine. And this one's fine. So just these two, we can move these down to kind of straighten out that purple. So you can kind of imagine it flowing through here. So it was like this, and now it's like this, and it flows a bit straighter. Small detail, and we can probably also grab this point. Actually, that one's okay. Yeah, we can leave that one there. And now also that I'm looking at it closer, I can see I've accidentally put the texture seam right here in the front of this arch. I actually want it in the back. So I'm going to fix that now. If I select, let's say, this edge loop, double click it, and you can see the edge loop highlight through here. So with these edges selected, I'm going to go to Polygons, Cut UV Edges, and then I want to sew those faces over here. So with these edges selected, I can move and sew. So I've moved those edges up here, and now my seam is in the back of the piece. So now this texture will flow through here without any kind of seam, which is what I want. Good to catch that before we go too far. Okay, so what I was going to do is mirror this. So I'm going to select the piece. I'm going to edit the pivot point to the point where I want to mirror across. So to do that, I'm going to press the W key for the move tool, hold down the D key, which is the edit pivot mode. With D still being held, I'll hold down the V key. So I have D and V, D as in dog, V as in Victor, both held down. You can see with the V key held down how snap to point is active. I'm going to middle mouse click and drag right through here to point snap the pivot point of this piece right there to that point. Then I'll let go of everything, and now my pivot point is right there. So now I want to mirror that over like this. So I'm going to go to the, I'm going to use the mirror command. I think it works well. So mesh mirror, you see it's highlighted green. It's a new command in Maya 2017. I'm going to the options, and I want to mirror across the x-axis. So I'll click mirror, make sure we have our settings right. So we're mirroring in the x-axis. Is it the negative direction? Nope. So I'm just kind of messing with these settings. So cut geometry off. So we want the x-axis. Let's see, merge border. There we go, object. That's what we wanted. So axis position, needed to set that to object. And merge border, do not merge. Okay, so now we don't want to merge those faces down here. Okay, so what I did was make sure it was x-axis and that the axis position was aligned with the object and not the world. Okay, and with that turned on, I could then see, let's see, make sure cut geometry with that on or off. We'll leave it on. Doesn't seem to be hurting anything. Okay, so with axis position set to the object, axis direction is the x-axis direction, the positive x-axis direction, and we did not merge the border. All right, that seemed to work fine. So Control-Shift-H to bring back everything else. So now our piece is mirrored across and looks pretty good. Now the texture wheel, you can see reverse over here. I can either go into the UVs and flip that if I want to, or I'll wait and see what it looks like with the wood texture and see if it's necessary. But if it is pretty obviously mirrored, I might need to change that, but I don't have to worry about it right now. All right, let's go ahead and do this piece. Let's go back to our split view. I'll go to Modify, Freeze Transformations, UV, Automatic, just to get a starting point. Now this piece is a bit of an odd shape compared to a lot of our typical structures. It was made with the intent of being hidden, kind of tucked into this little alcove. So the understanding is that this arch, these two arches on both sides, are hiding the interior faces that this object has. So it's not too important that they're UV'd. Actually, we could potentially even delete them, which I might do, but I'll leave it for now. So the front faces are the most important. So let's go ahead and select faces and highlight over, kind of mouse over the front, and you can see which of these two sides is the front, which is this one. So I'll grab it, select the shell. I'm going to move it over to the side. So this is the one we're really worried about. We're not really worried about the back so much. I'll just flip it like this so it's right side up. And let's see, I think for this piece, we're going to have the interfaces kind of separate. We're going to have a seam, I think, around the front of this piece, because I don't think it's going to be too big a deal to have that. I'll go ahead and all the little bevels, I do want them to attach to the main piece. So in order to achieve that, let's go ahead and just select all these edges like this. And I'm going to deselect the main ones running left to right. Okay, so now only the edges that are around the sides or the beveled corners of this piece are selected. And I'm going to go to polygons, cut UV edges to cut those edges specifically. And you can see them, how they're highlighted here. Let me see where those at. All right, let's see if those apply. Okay, I missed one. So I did miss a couple. So I do want these here to get cut. So what we want to have happen, I can select these edges, and what I want to see is when I move and sew, only those little thin beveled corners move over here, like that. That's what I want. Do the same over here. Move and sew. Move and sew that one. And these little ones in here. And then I can move and sew, or just sew, either way, just to kind of connect all these little pieces together. So we don't have these gaps like this. You can say move and sew, but they won't move, they'll just sew together since they're attached to this piece. Did I miss one? Alright, so I did miss this little sliver of a piece here. Let's see, where was that? Okay, right down here. Nope. Where was it? Oh, here it is, way over here. So you can cut this little edge. Polygons, cut. There we go. So I'm just sewing those little beveled edges through here. That one, no, I don't want to sew that one. That one's pretty much covered up by the arch on either side, so I'm not too worried about it. Kind of the same down here. Yeah, I don't think I need that one. Okay, so this is right here, the main thing that we're going to see. These interfaces through here, we can map them separately. And like I said, this piece is the back side. Select this shell. And this piece doesn't really matter too much, since it's not really going to be seen. So I'm just going to kind of stick it over here. I'll move this one kind of back into the main area, just kind of tell myself in the future these pieces are in the back, all those faces in the back. Not really worried about them so much. And also these faces are running up and down the sides are not ever going to be seen, I don't think. So we could potentially, like I said, delete those, but I'll just leave them over here to the side. We're not really being used at all. So I'll pull them over here too. And now these faces we will sew together. Okay. So these can be mapped like this. And like I said, the reasoning being whenever we see it, it's going to be a pretty small detail, so I'm not really wanting to spend a ton of time on it for one thing, just because it is so small. We're going to see it we'll be lucky to see it if it's this big in our final image. But just so it looks, do our due diligence when it comes to the work involved. We've got the main pieces that are visible mapped appropriately, and these pieces over here can be covered by other geometry or are in the back of the piece and not ever going to be seen. So we can apply our texture. Control-Shift-H to bring all this back and scale it so that our texture resolutions match. I can use the red as our guide since it's so close to these red objects here, or red sections of these objects. So I'm going to scale this down. It's a relatively small piece. So it looks like something like this. Pretty close. The interior faces, I'll grab those. And again, just want to scale them up so that they match for the most part. Match scale. That's the main thing we're worried about, is scale. We can do the same with this piece. And make sure I'm going to save it. Make sure I save things, because again, like I said in the last part, losing any of this kind of work is just heartbreaking, just because it is so tedious that the thought of having to do it all again is just really painful. Going to select this piece, and again, because it has some scale in here and negative values and so on, we'll just go to modify, freeze transformations. This is default. Get all these to the default values, and then we'll go back to UV automatic mapping just to get our starting points. And like I did with this piece here, the main things we're worried about are the front facing geometry and these interior faces. The ones that are hidden by other geometry or in the back are not really all that important. So with that in mind, I'm going to select our front facing shell, select shell, move it over here to work with. This is our back facing, so not really worried about it so much, so I'll move it over here to the side. And again, I want all those little beveled edges to be attached to our main piece here. So with that in mind, I'm going to select all of these. And again, like I did before, I'm going to deselect, hold on Control, and deselect the horizontal edges running through the middle, like this. So we only have the vertical edges running up and down the sides selected. And then when we go to, we'll make sure we get this little one too. Okay, got it. So then when we go to polygons, cut UV edges, and then sew them on to this piece, they should all come in really easily. So we're just selecting the edges we want, and clicking Move and Sew, pressing the G key to redo it a few times. Looks like I got them all. So once I have them, I'm actually going to just select them all like this, and then make sure I deselect all of these and all of these. So then I only want these little gaps to all be merged together. So press G to redo the Move and Sew, and it looks like that worked fine. And then I want to isolate this. So I'm going to hit Alt-H, so I can see just it by itself. So I know all these faces aren't going to be seen, or these faces. So I can move those UV shells over to the side. So I'm going to right click and select UVs, select these UV shells, and move them over here. And then these, I'll select them, deselect all this, deselect all that. And then I'll deselect a edge for a seam, move and sew. So they should all kind of move and sew together in one big line like this. Like this one got left out. So this one is going to be hidden. So we can go ahead and just attach it over here without really worrying about it too much. So we got a little bit of a piece right here. Where's this go? Okay, so it's tucked down into that little corner. So I'll just detach it and find out where it goes. Down in here, looks like. There we go. Moved and sewn into place. All right. So we can Control Shift H, bring back everything else, apply our texture grid, and then we can rescale this stuff to make sure it fits. So it looks like something like that. A little bit. Okay. Close enough. All right. Slowly but surely, we're making progress. We got, looks like, the most part of our window / door done, although we have this piece down here. Let's go ahead and do this real quick. And then we can put these, I think then we can put this together and move on to the rest of this piece. All right, so select this one. Once again, modify, freeze transformations, UV, automatic, just again, get us to starting point. Grab all these edges. I'll deselect a good one that would be a seam edge. We click deselect that one there. Move and sew, kind of attach them all together otherwise. Then we can figure out, we can attach our side pieces. Don't look like they really are very noticeable, but we'll go ahead and attach them anyway. Pretty much done with that one now. Assign our texture grid again. Make sure the scale is correct and that we're not upside down. So we'll use the yellow. Looks like that's a good visible column of color that we can use for our comparison. Pretty close. That's close enough. All right, so with that done, let me save this. Hit my save button. And because all these pieces are essentially done that are going to be duplicated over to become these pieces, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and grab these. Control D to duplicate them. I'm going to hit Control G to group them. I'll move my pivot point over here so it's in the middle. And we could use the mirror command, but I think for this I'll do the old-fashioned way. And I'm just going to scale -1 in the x-axis like this. Kind of flip them over here. Okay, then I have the group still selected. I'll go to Edit, Ungroup. We don't need that group anymore. And now I'll grab all of these down the middle. Don't need that one. Okay, I'll Control D again to duplicate these, and then Control G again to group. I'll move my pivot point, holding down the D key, moving it over here to be kind of in the middle of this. Scale -1 in the X, like that. Make sure we're all lined up correctly. We'll move it over a little bit, looks like. All right. Then I go to Edit, Ungroup. Okay. So I got all this section UV. Now the only thing that could be a concern is again the mirroring of it, because you see how these letters are reversed and so on. But it won't really matter until we get our actual textures on there and see what they look like, see how if it looks bad or not. Then we can kind of adjust it there whenever we get there. It might look okay though. So I'm going to again, oops, looks like I missed this piece. Let me do that real quick. Control D to duplicate. I'll just move it over here and scale -1 on the X-axis and tuck it in. Kind of make it look similar to the other one. Close enough. I'll fix it eventually if I need to. There we go. And so what we're going to do eventually is we're going to actually put a plane of geometry cutting through the middle of all this to act like our glass. And we're going to apply glass materials to that sheet running through the middle. And that would look pretty cool, I think. Might make it like frosted glass, so you're not looking through it because there's nothing back here. So I might make it kind of a frosted glass, or I'll look back at the picture and see if they're doing anything design-wise with it. But in any case, we have all this section UV'd. Again, I'm going to save it. And I'll see you on the next part of our environment project, UV mapping. Oh boy, this is so dull. All right, see you guys next time.